So we'll go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Genevieve Borello. I am the membership manager here at Actful. And today we have a nice little panel of people to talk about our two publications, Foreign Language Annals and the Language Educator. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Megan Malone, who's going to do a brief introduction of herself and talk a little more about the two publications.
Okay, hi everybody. This is Meg Malone. I'm the director of the Center for Assessment, Research, and Development here at Actful, and it sure is nice to have you here with us virtually today. I'm not going to say too much because you're not here to hear me talk. You're here to hear about the Language Educator and Foreign Language Annals. So Genevieve has introduced herself. I've introduced myself. Next, I'm going to give you a little bit of background, then I'll introduce our editor of the Language Educator, Martha Gorman, and then Ann Narens, our Foreign Language Annals editor. And then we're going to leave some time at the end for questions and responses. As Genevieve mentioned, you can write them in the chat and Genevieve will read them aloud for them to be answered. I am not going to read this to you. I'm sure if you're here, you can all read this quite well, but this is Actful's mission statement. And one of the ways that we bring about our mission statement is through these two publications. And as Genevieve mentioned, our editors are not just amazing, they are also talented. And just to tell you a little bit about the purposes of the webinar, to learn about the differences between the publications, I've been in the field long enough that I remember when we only had one. You're going to learn a little bit about how to submit an article, what are the procedures, and then that mysterious review process, those of us who publish, what happens during that review process. You'll also get a little bit of a pep talk, why you should publish, why it's so critical to our field that we are all contributing leadership and scholarship, and then some other ways that you can get involved if you aren't ready to publish yet. And so I am going to turn it over to Martha to talk a little bit about, you ready? Are we transferring, Genevieve?
There we go.
There we go.
Yes.
She's going to talk about the Language Educator. Go, Martha.
Thank you so much, Meg. Thank you, Genevieve, and welcome one and all to this wonderful webinar. I'm so excited to be able to address you directly, and I'm looking forward to taking questions. So, the Language Educator. You know, I'm quite new to this, but very, very passionate about this publication. I am as passionate as you are about languages. So it's my honor to be working on this publication. The Language Educator strives to provide educators of all languages with comprehensive and timely coverage of all aspects of education, but we can do better than that. What I really want to emphasize is that the nature of the Language Educator is that it is immediately, all the content in this publication is immediately executable by teachers and educators in the field, in the classroom. So ideas are great, but they've got to be executable, they've got to produce results. All you need to do for something that's in the Language Educator, all that should be necessary is if you are an educator in the field, is to add expertise and enthusiasm and stir it up to get results in the classroom. So most of you are probably most familiar with the focus topic articles in the Language Educator. They constitute about half of the content of each issue. I am thrilled to present to you today the full list of all 4 focus topic articles for 2019. You're the first to see these. Nobody has seen these before. They were just determined, but we now know what the focus topic articles is. And indeed, this is the principal and the primary and the highest profile way of submitting content, submitting articles to the Language Educator. So in January, February of 2019, we have Empowering Teacher Leaders. Followed up in March, April 2019. We, of course, have 4 issues a year. It's a quarterly. And it's Connecting Research to Our Practice. Those will be due on December 1st of 2018. In August, September of 2019, we will be developing a can-do attitude. Interesting topic. Those will be due on May 1st of 2019 and in October and November of 2019. That's a year from this convention, remember? They'll be due on July 1st. We will be diversifying language educators and learners. So there's your lineup for focus topic articles. Now, what does it take to present a focus topic article to the language educator? The length of these articles is approximately 2,000 to 2,500 words. A couple came in long this month, so I'm going to encourage you to stay in those guidelines and to consult the educator guidelines. In fact, I'm going to break here for just a second, and I'm going to show you the portal. Up here, you can see the URL for the submission portal for focus topic articles. I'm going to show you that on the actual screen. You should be able to see that now. And this is a special page. You can see where it is under publications, the language educator, and then down to special focus topic articles. And it lists all of them. So there's still October, November 2018 is still up there. January, February 2019. If you keep scrolling down, all of the 2019 focus topic articles topics are listed in order with the descriptions, and you then select which issue you're submitting for, provide the data, personal data, the title, and a description of your submission, and hit submit. And that's all it takes to submit a, you have to choose the file, of course. That file should be in Word format, and you will submit your graphics separately as JPEGs. I am going to encourage all of you to, where did that go? To, oh my goodness. I'm going to encourage you to submit there it is, to consult the author guidelines when you are preparing focus topic articles. And I've just gone back to the actual website. You should be able to see the author guidelines. They're very clear, they're very concise, and I don't want to go into them in great detail because you are perfectly capable of reading through them. Keep your manuscript brief, you write in the active voice. And this is also where the author guidelines are. This is also where you submit articles that are not focus topic articles. I want to talk about that for just a second, but not yet. We'll get to there. So I'd like to remain on focus topic articles and remind you that focus topic articles are double-blind reviewed. That means that there are a panel of at least 2, possibly 3 reviewers who read through the articles. They have no idea who wrote them, and they make recommendations regarding publication. They also provide feedback, and that feedback is provided to you as well. We take the time, whether your article is accepted or not, to provide you with the feedback that our reviewers give you. And these articles are also published with your byline, which is kind of wonderful. So I will take questions regarding focus topic articles at the end, and there are some recommendations regarding the preparation of them at the end. But there are other ways to publish in the Language Educator in addition to focus topic articles. And if I could change my screen, you would see what they are. There we go. So, but wait, there's more. It's not just focus topic articles. If you're not up to writing 2,000 or 2,500 words, if you don't have time or the inclination, or you just want to get your feet wet, there are other ways to publish in the Language Educator. Probably the easiest way is in the So You Say section. You'll recognize the page from the publication. So there's a question, and you respond to that question, and you do it on the So You Say portal, which I can show you. And that is its own portal on the actual website. And again, you go under publications down to So You Say, and you will end up here on the So You Say page, and you will select which issue of the publication. You'll provide your name and other data, and you will save a draft and you'll submit it. And it lands in my inbox, and I'm always pleased to receive So You Say submissions. The next way in which you can submit to the Language Educator, which very few people know about or recognize because I get almost no submissions, is under Tech Watch. Again, you'll recognize this portion of the publication. It's usually a 2 or 3 page spread, but the beginning of it is always an educator's tip. I assume you're all educators. you can provide tech tips to fellow educators. And when you do that, and you have something in your classroom that works very well, and it's techy, you should write that up. Shouldn't be more than between 200 and 250 words. And you will end up with your byline in the language educator, as well as a photograph of you. You can see the headshot there. Oops, going up there. So the other way to participate in TechWatch is to notice websites that you find useful and to submit them via email with the name, the URL of the website and why you think it's useful to people. That's called Websites to Watch. And also in TechWatch, there's Listen Up, which are language-related podcasts. So if you find podcasts that you feel are useful, that you'd like to share with others, you may submit them via email, just the URL and a description of that podcast and what you find interesting and useful about it. So those are 3 ways that people don't think about submitting to the language educator, but which are not as difficult as a focus topic article, but just as useful for fellow educators. Another way to submit to the language educator is to provide a spotlight on. These are spotlights. So if you know of an exemplary program, perhaps it's an organization, maybe it's an individual. Our example here is the Glastonbury Public Schools. But if you know of a program, an organization, or an individual, you just submit an email inquiry with a brief description of that program, organization, or individual, and I will let you know whether it's appropriate and which issue it might fit into. The length of those are about 400 to 600 words, and you would receive a byline for that spotlight. So your name would be associated with the article. Another way also that people are not thinking of is by sharing recent news articles that you find interesting or useful, and we can share those with your colleagues in the publication. You just submit the headline and the URL for the news article by email to tle@actful.org, and we can include that in either the breaking news section if it's a longer news article, or if it's just a small piece of news, we can include it in brief bits. Not all submissions will be accepted, but again, it's a quick and easy way to be very helpful to fellow educators. Finally, I have a new section of the Language Educator to announce to you today, calling it provisionally the State of Language Education. You will recall that in the Language Educator, we have regional updates that come from the regional affiliates of ACTFL, Northeast and Southwest and Southeast, and all of those wonderful affiliates. I'd like to dig a little deeper than the regionals and get down into the street level of language education. So education news in your state or community that interests you as a language educator. So programs, policies, controversies, if there's a reason for applause, people making a difference, news you can use, and it's easy to do this. You simply quote a news article or write your own. You provide links to the sources. If there are graphics, you include them, and you submit them via email. So this is a brand new section, and you are cordially invited to submit via that. And it's just by email. There isn't even a portal. So here are some do's and a couple of don'ts. So I have to tell you that I do receive submissions with some frequency that I have no place to put. They're great articles. They're really nice pieces, but there just isn't any place in the Language Educator to put them. The Language Educator is a fairly prescribed publication. There are set departments. We have legislative look. We have lead with languages. We have the Inside ACTFL. There are very set places. And then, of course, all the focus topic articles and the sections that we've just reviewed. If your idea doesn't fit into anywhere in the publication, I will be sad but forced to say, I love what you've written, but I don't know where to put it. There is no place. So be sure to read through the magazine. Imagine where it would go. Where would it work? And be sure to follow the author guidelines, which I would like to share with you briefly. again. So the author guidelines we've looked at once. Remember, they're under publications, under author guidelines. So be certain that your ideas are innovative and that they speak to language educators of all levels and of all languages. We can't do articles that don't address a broad enough interest. If it's only a very small section of educators who would be interested in it, it would not be a good article to publish. So pass it through that filter and make certain that innovative and that it speaks to as educators of as many levels and of as many languages as possible. Submit articles as Word documents in all cases. Please include listed captions. And when you provide graphics, you should provide them as individual JPEGs. You can embed them in the Word document if you wish, but I will also need them as independent individual JPEGs, and they should be at the highest possible resolution. I'm going to encourage all of you to know APA guidelines. That's the American Psychological Association. That's the style book that we use. So when you do your references, abide by it, but know also that we use APA in every section of the publication. So utilize those punctuation rules. There is a comma before and, the Harvard comma. So do abide by the APA style guidelines. Please do not submit images off the internet for publication. They're just too low resolution. We can't use them in print. And please do not submit photos and images that you don't have explicit permission to publish. Know that a student waiver form is available. So we do need waivers when students appear in the photograph. And finally, a pet peeve. Please do not put 2 spaces after periods. That used to work with typewriters, but it doesn't work anymore with computers because of justification, left-right justification, at least big holes in the columns. So that's what I have for you. This is who I am. I also am a linguist, like many of you. I do multiple languages. I'm an accredited translator and a certified interpreter, and love languages and passionate about multilingualism. And I would love to talk to you personally about any questions or concerns that you might have about the publication. If I fail to get back to you, call me. You can email me, and I promise to get back to you. I would like to have conversations with educators in the field, so you should feel free to contact me and ask me any questions. Come to me with any concerns. And I am going to, with that, pass the baton to my colleague, Anne Narens, who publishes a very different and equally valuable publication. And so I will be passing it over.
I think we were actually going to do questions before we passed it
over. Are we going to do questions first?
Yep, we have a couple that came in. So someone asked,
wonderful.
How many articles are usually published as a focus topic, and what is the acceptance rate?
I usually receive between 10 and 15 per issue, and generally publish between 5 and 7.
Thank you. Someone asked if they would be able to email you an idea or maybe a brief paragraph about something to know if it would be a good fit for an article for TLE.
That's exactly the best way to approach that. Instead of sitting down and writing it and submitting it wholesale, these things come in over the transom all the time. It's much better to send me an email, say, is there anywhere in the magazine that this would work? Is this a good idea? And I'm always happy to respond.
Thank you. We did have another question. So this person had asked what kind of articles are published, more qualitative, quantitative, which is a good segment into our FLA because that publication is actually more for those types of articles. So we will turn it over to Anne in just a second, but let me see if there's any other things. For the spotlight, are people... Go ahead, Martha.
The focus topic articles always have references, resources, they're properly documented. I don't want to make light of them. As we segue over to Foreign Language Annals, which is much more academic and scholarly, I do want to say that the focus topic articles are highly researched, they're well referenced, well documented, with quotes, And so they're very solid articles. They just need to be immediately implementable. What we're doing is giving educators in the field great strategies, ideas, programs. This is something that's much more implementable than research. It's the research going into the classroom is what we're doing in the language educator. So I don't want you to think that these are light fluff pieces. Documented, researched, well thought out, well structured articles that do undergo a double-blind review process. They just need to be useful.
Okay, thanks, Martha. A couple last questions. So someone asked about, you were talking about images with articles. So if someone can't just use an image from online, what kind of images are they supposed to be using? How do you get rights for those images?
You have to ask permission from the person who took the image. So you can try using one from online, but if you need to identify who created that image, who took the photograph, who created the image. You can usually do that even through Google image search. If you click on the image, it will take you to the source of it. And if it's copyright protected, then you need to actually ask permission and get written permission for use. And if it's not high enough resolution to use in print, and the rule of thumb on that resolution is it needs to be at least as large as it will be printed in the publication. You can never make a photograph or an image larger than it is to start with. So if it's 1 inch by 1 inch, you cannot print it at 4 inches by 4 inches because it will be completely blurry. There's no resolution. So you need something that has relatively high resolution if it's from the internet and permission.
Thank you. And one last question. For your Spotlight section, someone would like to know if they can nominate or write about their own school and if you accept international schools.
I would love to feature some international schools and programs. That is completely within keeping, but they have got to be innovative, exceptional, a model in some way to be spotlighted. You may think that your own program is the best thing from sliced bread, and it may very well be, but you've got to prove that in the spotlight. It has to be exceptional in some way because there's so many programs. So international is not a deal breaker at all. I think that educators love knowing what's going on elsewhere in the world. So I would love to receive something of an international nature.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We will have another break for questions at the end of Anne's section. So if anyone else has any other questions, maybe you think for Martha, we will have another opportunity, but you can also email her. Her email's on the screen. But we're going to go ahead and flip over to Anne. So Anne, I'm going to give you control. There we go. Perfect. Take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to be chatting with you about one of my passions, and that is foreign language annals. I have been an elementary, middle school, and high school French teacher. I've taught at the university for about 30 years, and some of that in French and a lot of it in foreign language pedagogy. Foreign language annals is just a tremendously exciting part of my professional work. And I'm very, very pleased to share with you some thoughts about what our mission is, how articles are put together, some tips on scholarly writing, some thoughts on the review process that will help you bring your article and your ideas and your research forward to our readers. So with that in mind, just a little bit about Foreign Language Annals. We are the scholarly official research journal of ACTFL. The issues come out 4 times a year, spring, summer, fall, and winter. The months are listed there. We are very, very faithful to our time frames and are very pleased to release things in those months with each of the 4 issues. I also would like to let you know, however, that you can go onto our website and you'll notice that articles that are ready to be released are coming out in something called Early View. So it's an easy way to get access to the very latest research before it is in fact produced in a compiled, printed, or electronic volume. So Early View is a lovely place to go on our website. The other thing that you will see also on the website are some video abstracts, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But it's great to see our authors in action, speaking passionately about their work. And those abstracts, those videos are available all the time, and there are some of them attached to each of the 4 issues every year. So a little more about Foreign Language Annals. Our mission is to focus on the teaching and learning of languages across all levels of instruction. This means that I accept manuscripts in pre-K world language programs, all the way through post-secondary and graduate instruction, study abroad, all of those experiences that come into play in the ways that all of us teach world languages. We do give preference to certain kinds of articles, however. The first category are articles that advance theoretical discussions of the teaching and learning of languages. And the highlight words there, I think, are the emerging issues. I can't stress the extent to which everything in Foreign Language Annals needs to move our profession forward. So our emerging issues are topics that are beginning to take hold, are becoming more addressed. They're the new theories that we're playing with and are going to move our profession into the next 50 years. Because I'm sure for those of you who have gone online and looked at our most recent publications, Foreign Language Annals, like ACTFL, is coming off its 50th anniversary celebration. And we're now planning where research is going and where our field is going in the next 50 years. The next category of articles that we love to receive are the research studies. And I know someone's question was, how about qualitative? How about quantitative? We do accept qualitative manuscripts. We love mixed methods approaches that bring in data from a number of different sources. So those data streams inform each other. What I'm really looking for in our qualitative and quantitative studies are patterns of results. I think our data become convincing when they show discernible patterns or preferences, ways of behaving, ways of performing, patterns of relationships. So while case studies are accepted, within the case study, the data have to show a pattern of behavior or a pattern of performance or achievement. Research that, and actually our theoretical papers also, are preferred when they address languages other than English. We do occasionally publish something in English as a second or foreign language, but essentially we're looking for research in languages other than English. I think the most important takeaway from this mission slide that we're looking at is that submissions have to have clear and significant implications. When I took over the journal, one of my first editor's messages, and then on into that whole stream, was about the sense of translating research into practice. As Martha shared with you, we're really all trying to achieve the same thing. We're trying to take a growing body of knowledge and to help that knowledge inform the decisions, the teaching practices that define our field. So while there are journals that are much more focused on theoretical issues or data for their own sake, and there's nothing wrong with that, that is in fact not really within the mission of Foreign Language Annals in general and my editorship in particular. So over these 5 years, the emphasis on translating research into practice is critical. With that in mind, I'd like to just give you a couple of ideas about the places in an article where we would see and emphasize that translation. With the new interior page layout that was launched with the spring issue this year, we have added a box, a 50-word statement beneath the title and the authorship information called the challenge. In the challenge, in 50 words, we would like you to make a statement about what you perceive to be the state of the issue which you are addressing, and then to pose 2 or 3 more global questions to challenge your readers' thinking and practice. So the challenge statement is not simply a very small version of your abstract. Your abstract will follow the challenge. The challenge says to your readers, let's think about this issue in the teaching and learning of languages. Here are some interesting questions that we should think about as we consider our current practice. And then let's find out how our authors, how their data are helping us answer these questions. The other place that I am emphasizing this translation of research into practice is in the discussion section, in which we really need to be very specific about what it means for practitioners in our pre-K through postgraduate studies. A colleague and friend calls this the so what factor. In foreign language annals, we really must answer, so what? Why are the findings important in advancing our profession? So with that bit of background, I'd like to talk a little bit about how to organize the manuscript. We obviously do the emerging issues papers, but I would guess that probably 90% of our published articles are reports of research studies. And I love this quote: research is formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. And our purpose, obviously, is to inform instruction and to advance our practice. So the first important thing before you even begin writing, as you begin thinking about a dissertation question or a funded study or an ACTFL research priority proposal, you need to find a question about which you are curious. You're going to spend a lot of time on this topic. You also need to make sure it's a topic that matters to our readers and that it advances our understanding. Your research is going to be organized as you write it up in some very specific sections, and all of these are well laid out in our author guidelines, which are available, of course, on the Foreign Language Annals website. I'd like to just spend a few minutes here talking about the differences in content and tone among these sections, because each one has a very specific purpose. In your introduction, you'll want to describe the issue, you'll explain its importance, you will mention the study format, and you will summarize the research questions. This introduction, along with your challenge, is your opportunity to engage the reader, help them become curious about your topic. A research study is sort of like a mystery. You have to help them understand that there's a problem out there and we need to resolve it. And your data will help them do that. And this is why it's good to know how the mystery was solved. So the introduction is a very, very important piece. The next piece is the review of literature. As your editor for more than 5 years now, I have found that reviews of literature are particularly tricky to write and are generally much too long. I know that in our dissertations, we need to cite essentially everything that could possibly be relevant. But in a research study where you have a very limited set of words and your page space needs to be allocated wisely, please include only highly relevant, current, closely related research, which means as you translate perhaps your dissertation into a journal article, you're going to need to think carefully about your framing of the research questions that you're trying to share with us. You need to be sure that everything in that literature review pinpoints the contribution that your study will make. And at the end, you need to have a very clear statement of your research questions. With very rare exceptions, this literature review should not exceed 15% of your word count. So please be concise. Frame the study for us well, but don't simply cover everything that might possibly ever, perhaps, be relevant. I like to think of the methods section as a recipe. Imagine that I wanted to conduct your study. In order to do that, to replicate it, I would need to know exactly how you proceeded. Thus, your method section needs to be fairly cut and dried, quite succinct, but detailed enough that another researcher could replicate your procedures to the step-by-step, exact, and systematic level. At the very least, you need to tell us who your participants are. We must know your procedures. We must know how you collected your data. And we need to know how those data were analyzed. This is a very dry, very systematic section of the paper. And just as you write, really think recipe. What exactly would that researcher need to know to conduct my study again? And let's see how our findings might compare. Following the method section, you get to present your results. Again, I'd like to emphasize that we're looking for patterns. If this is quantitative or qualitative or mixed methods work, we're looking for the patterns. So statistically, those patterns are usually presented in tables and figures. You'll want to introduce the table or the figure in one or more sentences, and you'll want to point out from the table or figure only the most interesting findings. Show us the most interesting relationships. You do not need to repeat everything that's shown in your table or your figure in prose. The figure or the table is the shorthand presentation of what sometimes becomes a very lengthy explanation of everything that we can simply see presented for us in a more graphic and usually more clear way. The interesting thing about the results section, again, it's very systematic and it's very dry. In the results section, you are not allowed to comment on the results, to exclaim, to explain, to hypothesize, to compare, to give us your opinion. In the results section, you tell us and you show us what you found. This is also true in a qualitative study, but instead of presenting your data graphically using tables and figures, you will present your data by sharing examples well selected from your participants' comments or observed behaviors from your data sources. So let's review a little bit. We have an introduction that sets the stage for the mystery. We have a literature review that provides the reader with enough background on the mystery that we know where things stand in our profession. Then, of course, we have the procedures, how we went about solving the mystery. The results now are the solution to that mystery. They are what we found. The discussion in the implication section seems to be the hardest one for my authors to write. I think probably because by the time we get to this point, we have written a lot and we are ready to be done. However, this is the most important part because this is in fact the place where we get to do some creative thinking and writing. This is where we focus on the so what factor. We comment on and we interpret the findings. We compare our findings with other studies. Do our findings corroborate previous work? Are we all on the same page? Are we starting to establish a trend that shows something that with all of these studies together seems to be what we might call firm and true? This is the place where you can offer your specific and significant implications for teaching and learning. Remember that I spoke earlier about foreign language annals being committed to the translation of findings into practice. This is where you get to tell us as your readers, look, this is so exciting. I have solved my mystery, and this is what it means for us as a profession. This is where you get to draw some overall conclusions. And of course, you're going to briefly state your limitations and also briefly share directions for future research. I would like to emphasize in here briefly, every study has some limitations, but we don't need pages in which you explain them. The conclusion should only be 1 or 2 paragraphs. It's a place where you summarize the key findings and you reinforce how the study has advanced our understanding, what the implications are for the profession, and you bring the manuscript to a close. Going back into the studies that I've published over these last 5 years, with the exception of our spring special 50th anniversary issue, which is composed entirely of 20 invited position papers, you will find these stages and steps in the manuscript, and I hope you will also see the differences in content and in tone. At this point, I'd like to move to my third topic, which is scholarly writing. Of course, you need to use correct, standard, and professional English. Please write in a style that is accessible to our broad readership. This includes our pre-K through postgraduate teachers, educators, administrators, and researchers. I do ask that you avoid first-person subjects and modifiers. This is stated in our author guidelines. As I like to joke with some of the authors that I work with, this study is not about you. It is not about what you did, even though we really do need to know what you did. It's more, it needs to be a more abstract and impersonal style. It is not a chatty style. It's an accessible, professional, impersonal reporting of your mystery. Please do refer to the author guidelines. As mentioned, they are on the website, and we do require APA style. If you're seeking a couple of tips here to publish things from your dissertation, dissertations obviously include multiple research questions, and all of your dissertation work is unlikely to reform itself into a single scholarly article. This is great news because you're going to need multiple publications as you move out of your doctoral years into your professorships. Please be sure that you align your introduction, literature review, methods, results, and discussion sections only with those research questions. Be sure to streamline and focus the writing. Do not cut and paste whole sections from your dissertation because they will not be tailored and crafted in a way that is specific to these smaller chunks of research questions that you're going to find within your larger dissertation. As a final comment on this, please do not send me your dissertation as an article. Please don't upload it. This has happened only a couple of times in my years as editor, and it does make me smile. But you do know that I have an 800 page limit each year. And if I were to publish your dissertation, I would have no pages remaining for all of the other worthy topics and research questions. I am going to share with you a couple of graphics here to try to make my point in what I hope you believe is a humorous way. This is a picture of the celebrated French author Marcel Proust. And here is a graphic of a portion of one sentence from the text on reading. If we were to see the entire sentence, we would find that it runs more than 600 words. I do not want you to write like Marcel Proust. In contrast, these are two very celebrated scientists. This is Watson and Crick, James Watson, Francis Crick. The molecular structure of nucleic acids. It was published in Nature in 1953. This is the discovery of DNA. This article changed the entire foundation of science. Here it is. This is the whole thing. In fact, it is on the left-hand page, and the references flow slightly onto the right-hand page. The entire article that changed our world is 843 words. It's 14 paragraphs. So I'm going to give you many more words than 843, but please remember Watson and Crick as you prepare your manuscript. As authors, as writers, we all love our words, but I need you to be much more like Watson and Crick than Marcel Proust. As a parting thought on this sense of writing, I love this quotation. You can do the best research and you can be making the strongest intellectual argument, but if readers don't get past the third paragraph, you have wasted your energy and you've wasted my valuable ink. So remember, translating into practice, explaining the mystery, hooking the reader on the challenge statements, making sure the reader knows why this is important is the essence of the manuscript that I'd like to receive from you. Very quickly, as I end my time, I'd like to talk about how you submit. Of course, we do use online submission system, manuscriptcentral.com, FLA journal. You will need to designate a single corresponding author if there are multiple authors on the work. Please be sure to pick your keywords with care, because I will pick your blind anonymous reviewers based on your keywords. Be sure to pick keywords that will send me to the best possible reviewers for your work. To ensure anonymity, of course, you may not have your name or names of co-authors. Any identifiable references to your programs, your departments, your URLs, all of that needs to be removed because it is a double-blind process. You will not know who the reviewers are. The reviewers will not know who you are. I am the only person in the middle who knows what's happening on both sides. While your manuscript is under review, you can track its progress. We are very quick. I've given myself an assignment of 10 days to get your paper out to review. By reviewers, I have given reviewers 3 weeks to come back with their comments. And things are moving very, very quickly at Foreign Language Annals these days. You might be contacted by the managing editor, who is Luke Plonsky. He is wonderful, and he's on our webinar today. So if you have questions from Luke, you can certainly ask him about how he processes the manuscripts. Our current acceptance rate is about 18%. We did receive about 240 manuscripts last year. If you are invited to revise, please do so graciously. I will provide very detailed comments. Your reviewers will provide detailed comments. And we hope that you will accept these in the spirit in which they are offered. Your reviewers are experts. They have come through your keyword list, so they should be knowledgeable of your topic. They have your best interest and the best interests of our profession in mind. So please be gracious and be open-minded when reading their comments. I know sometimes it's hard to have someone criticize your baby, and I know that we love our words and we love our work, but having that outside opinion is really important. So I'm going to conclude with why Foreign Language Annals? Well, first, we are Actful Scholarly Research Journal. We have a very broad international readership, and we have been moving in these last 5 years to a number of ways to disseminate your work. Obviously, in addition to the print and the online editions, Wiley puts together with us free online collections. So if you were to go back into our website, you will see that I spent much of last summer reading essentially all of the first 50 years of foreign language annals and putting together selected bibliographies on about 10 or 11 different topics. Those are free, they're online, and we will be adding to those with new e-collections as we proceed. Walia also puts together for us themed collections for very diverse audiences. Those are broadly disseminated. We do have 2 beautiful pages, thanks to Martha and her language educator team, that appear in that magazine. They are always, I believe, they have been at least at the end of we get the back cover and just inside the back cover. So you can get a little sneak preview on what's coming in our next issue. And recently, with the help of Lisa Campo at Actful, we have every 2 weeks been tweeting the videos that you will be invited to make. And these are just absolutely lovely. The authors are enthusiastic about their work. They share in a way that highlights the study and its implications. They are very viewer friendly, and we have gotten some really lovely responses. It gets your work out there. As I mentioned, we are very responsive. First decision averages about 20 days. That does include, of course, those that are immediately rejected and don't perhaps last 24 hours, as well as those that go out for review and will come back in 4 to 5 weeks. Our reviewers are fabulous. They have been averaging 17 days turnaround time, even though I give them 21. They actually have been coming in ahead of that, and final decisions are made quite quickly. The last thing I might emphasize is that I love my authors. Once you're in our camp, I provide very detailed editing support, which you are welcome to accept or reject, but I do spend quite a bit of time with papers and help us craft this foreign language annals feel, which challenges, which explains the mystery, which solves the mystery, and tells our readers why that mystery is critically important for their professional practice. So with that, I'm going to pass the ball back. I think we have some minutes for questions. I probably spoke a little bit longer than my allocated time, but as you can tell, I am passionate about foreign language annals.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anne. Let's see, I'm going to go through some of the questions. So someone asked, where would the theoretical framework go? Is it addressed in the literature review?
Yes, your literature review is think of it as the frame for your, are we good on sound or no?
It looks like it's Meg. Hold on, let me mute her. Okay, we're all set now.
Okay, once again, your theoretical framework, your past studies, your review of existing research is that frame. It's sort of in the mystery, it's the scene. It's Mr. Green in the library. It's that picture that you're trying to paint for us of the current state of knowledge on your research question.
We had a couple of questions sort of going back to the beginning of your presentation, Anne, sort of to talk about the differences again between the challenge and the abstract and sort of clarify them a little more.
I'd be happy to do that. The abstract provides a bit of your frame that explains what your research question is. It will mention how you collected your data very briefly, your research questions and your data collection. It will briefly summarize your findings. All of that in 150 words. And there are more details about kind of the checkbox topics that you would want to refer to in the author guidelines on our website. The challenge is a more global statement. For example, you might say, there has been considerable research on the benefits of study abroad. Then you would want to ask 2 or 3 thought-provoking questions. Is all study abroad equally effective? Or what are the factors that make study abroad more productive? So you're going to ask a few questions that in the challenge, the sense is to take the reader and say, hello, reader, let's think about this. What do you think right now before you get involved in my mystery and my data and my implications? What do you think? So it really is not a detailed summary of your study itself. It addresses the global problem that your study is helping us to resolve.
Thank you. One other question. So someone asked if you could give an example to illustrate what you meant by case studies that show patterns of performances.
Okay, a case study often is involves a very small number of participants. For example, there will be a case study coming out of one highly proficient American learner of Chinese who went to China, went to art school, worked as a professional art teacher and artist who exhibited his works in a gallery. The researcher followed this one individual, did video recordings, audio recordings, spoke with colleagues, spoke with students, and gathered a broad multi-source set of data about how the case study student appropriated Chinese and used it in very unusual and idiosyncratic ways that were very different from native speakers to convey his own tone and values. There was a pattern of examples about cultural behaviors that he appropriated and modified for his own purposes. So although we have a case study student, one individual, there are multiple examples, rich examples of how the student used language for his own and appropriated culture on his own to create what is known in the research as the third space. It's that space between his own culture and the target culture, which is neither culture, but this independent space in between.
Thanks, Anne. I'm going to take the screen for just a second to sort of show everyone where all these things that Anne and Martha have been referencing on the website. So I'm just going to show everyone the website really quickly. So here is actful.org. Hopefully everyone's familiar with it. So I am currently logged in, but if you're not logged in, you can just log in. And so all of these sections, publications, everything is under this publication section. So here is all those links that Martha was referencing. Oh, if my computer would like to behave. So those different sections, the author guidelines, things like that. For Anne, here's the sections for FLA, the abstract, the abstracts, the guidelines, the reviewer guidelines. Everything is right here on the website. As actual members, you have access to this. You have access to past issues. So maybe you want to go and see if anyone's ever written about a topic you're possibly interested in. You could just go in and actually search. So our issues for TLE from 2011 to present are searchable, and for FLA, they are all searchable for keywords. So say we are looking up technology, you just come in here and you can search all issues, and it will show you every single hit that word has and all of the issues. As you can see, there's lots of different ones that it's clearly come up with. You can refine it, things like that. So if you want to write on maybe a new topic, you can look to see if it's ever been written about, look to see what other issues have been written about, maybe relevant issues, close issues like that. But it's all here on the website, so you are welcome to come here and look if you wanted to actually check it out. And then you can always contact us if you had questions. Maybe you have an article and you aren't sure which it would fit better in the Language Educator or Foreign Language Annals. You can always contact ACTFL staff. We will pass it along to their two editors, and they can sort of work with you to see which it would be better for. That is sort of the synopsis. Did anyone else have any other questions that they would like to go over? Don't see any. Let's see. I'm gonna see if anyone else had anything. I'm not sure if Meg or Anne or Martha, if any of you all had anything else to say or chime in.
Thank you.
I just want to thank everybody for coming, especially our amazing editors, and Genevieve for putting it all together, and Luke for participating. And it's just great to have you, here. We can't publish these pieces without you, so we need you to contribute so that we can contribute to the body of knowledge about our field.
Such a pleasure to be here. I'm so glad to be in direct contact with members and with listeners. This is such a remarkable opportunity. Thank you so much for doing this webinar.
I agree. This has been a wonderful pleasure, the opportunity to share what we're passionate about with people who are also passionate about our publications and our profession is a tremendously exciting experience. And I'd like to thank Actual staff for organizing this for us. It has been a joy to work with you.
Thank you all so
Excellent.
much. If no one else has any other questions, we will let everyone go. But thank you all again for attending. And I hope you have a great rest of the evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.